All right, good afternoon. Mesdames, thank you. I will start off with a statement from the Secretary General about the passing of Ted Turner. The Secretary General was deeply saddened to learn of the passing of Ted Turner, a visionary whose conviction, whose generosity, and whose audacious spirit left lasting imprint on the United Nations and our world. Ted Turner believed in the United Nations and its purpose at a defining moment, and he invested in that mission. Ted Turner bet on humanity and in the process helped strengthen the security of his own country and reinforced our common values. Quite simply, Ted Turner was the foundation of the United Nations Foundation. Ted's $1 billion commitment to the UN and subsequent creation of the United Nations changed the nature of philanthropy, but it was not his ongoing commitment and advocacy to the UN and the importance of diplomacy will be his true legacy. He never stopped pushing for the world to do better and to do better through the UN. He helped expand our reach and mobilize our partnerships, drive action on many of the defining challenges of our time, from global health to peace and human rights, and to the protection of the planet. I'm deeply grateful for his extraordinary commitment. The Secretary General, is deeply grateful for his extraordinary commitment to international problem solving and his unwavering support for the ideals of the UN Charter. The Secretary General extends his deepest condolences to his family and loved ones. His legacy endures as we keep striving for a stronger United Nations and a better world for all. Excuse me, 2 seconds. Back here, Rosemary DiCarlo, the Undersecretary General for Political and Peacebuilding Affairs, briefed the Security Council in closed consultations this morning on the situation in the Middle East. She talked about the recent missiles and drone attacks on the United Arab Emirates. Ms. DiCarlo underscored that from the start of the conflict on February 28th, the Secretary General condemned all unlawful attacks in the Middle East and beyond. He's also stressed that the Security Council Resolution 2817 must be respected and civilians and civilian infrastructure must be protected. The Secretary General's personal envoy for the Middle East conflict and its consequences, Jean Arnaud, is continuing his diplomatic consultations in the region. We remain committed to supporting all efforts aimed at a comprehensive and durable solution to this conflict. Turning to Lebanon, we've seen the reports of newly issued evacuation orders by the Israeli authorities for a dozen Lebanese areas across South Nabatea and the Bekaa areas. I can tell you that we note with concern these displacement orders and airstrikes against Lebanese towns, targeting areas both south of the Litani River and far beyond it, including Saida and West Bekaa. We once again reiterate that civilians and civilian infrastructure must be respected and protected at all times. This is forcing further displacement of civilians already impacted by months of hostilities. We and our humanitarian partners continue to support the response. The UN Refugee, for example, and its partners have reached more than 158,000 displaced people with psychosocial support, with dignity kits, cash assistance, and other services. However, the significant risks persist, including movement restriction, psychological distress, lack of documentation, and heightened exposure to exploitation, particularly for women and children. Meanwhile, OCHA reports that as strikes continue, particularly in southern Lebanon, the death toll also is rising daily. Overnight, one emergency worker was killed, 3 others were injured in an Israeli airstrike in southern municipality Kfar Douin in Nabatea. Another emergency worker was injured in a subsequent strike in the same area while responding. Attacks on healthcare also remain deeply alarming. The World Health Organization has so far recorded 151 attacks on healthcare, resulting in 103 deaths and more than 230 injuries, including 5 attacks since the ceasefire announcement on April 17. These incidents undermine people's access to care and place both patients and frontline responders at serious risks. Our UNIFIL mission, meanwhile, in southern Lebanon, reports continued heightened Israeli Defense Forces Air activity took place yesterday across the mission's area of operations. That included airstrikes and helicopter engagement near several locations along the Blue Line. UNIFIL also recorded restrictions on the freedom of movement of peacekeepers in Sector West. In one incident, a UNIFIL convoy was temporarily obstructed northwest of Al-Bayada by an IDF tank before being allowed to proceed. In a separate incident, another UNIFIL convoy was blocked southeast of Nekora by IDF vehicles and was forced to return to UNIFIL headquarters in Nekora. Despite these operational risks and movement constraints, peacekeepers remain in position and continue to carry out their mandated tasks in support of Resolution 1701. We once again urge all parties to exercise maximum restraint and avoid actions that could further escalate tensions. Turning to the situation in the OPT, notably in Gaza, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that 2.1 million people living in Gaza remain confined to less than half of the territory of the Gaza Strip. People are unable to access other parts of Gaza where land reserves and critical facilities such as solid waste and landfills are present. They're also unable to travel abroad or access the West Bank where services such as specialized health care could be available to them. People who are allowed to exit as part of a medical evacuation represent a tiny fraction of those who need services that are unavailable on a daily basis in Gaza. Restoring local services is hindered by restrictions on the entry of critical items and the restrictions on the operations of some of our key partners. Despite the restrictions, last week, shelter partners distributed nearly 5,000 bedding items, 600 bedding kits, over 1,500 sealing off kits, and nearly 550 tents, and that went to more than 4,400 families. Partners leading on food security continue to serve about 1.1 million meals each day through more than 120 kitchens throughout the Gaza Strip. The World Food Program said it has reached more than 1.6 million people with food parcels, hot meals, bread, and cash every month. Yet more than 6 months since the declaration of a ceasefire, WFP says hunger hasn't disappeared, noting high malnutrition levels. Many families still rely on food assistance to get by as fresh food remains too expensive. 1 in 5 families eats only one meal every day. 1 in 4 our food security partners warn that cooking gas shortages force nearly 7 in every 10 families to burn waste alongside other unsafe means of cooking. This is an increase of 13% compared to last month. Turning to the West Bank, displacement due to Israeli settler activities continues. Over the past week, OCHA recorded the displacement of more than 30 people after repeated threats and attacks by settlers on herding communities in Hebron and Ramallah. Since 2023, more than 5,900 Palestinians have been displaced by Israeli settler violence, including about 2,000 people this year alone, and we are not halfway done through the year. Turning to Ukraine, our OCHA colleagues tell us that humanitarian convoys continue to reach hard-to-access communities near the front lines, even as heavy bombardments in large urban centers across the eastern part of the country are causing civilian casualties, including among first responders. Yesterday and today, we and our partners delivered 2 humanitarian convoys to support residents in Donetsk and Kharkiv region. Yesterday's convoy to Sviatorysk, one of the hardest hit towns in the Donetsk region, was led by our humanitarian coordinator, Matthias Schmel, who was accompanied by the head of OCHA in Ukraine, Andrea De Domenico. Today's convoy reached people in Kharkiv. Both convoys delivered solar lamps, medicines, construction materials, hygiene supplies from various UN agencies, as well as national and international NGOs. So far this year, we and our partners have delivered more than 20 humanitarian convoys, providing critical support to nearly 22,000 residents in frontline communities in the country. Across Ukraine, some 30 civilians were killed and 170 were injured yesterday. And in the early hours of this morning, that's what local authorities are telling us. This includes large-scale attacks on gas production facilities in Poltava region. Reacting to those attacks, our humanitarian coordinator, Matthias Schmel, expressed his condolences to the families of those killed and called once again for the protection of civilians and civilian infrastructure. Quick update from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where blue helmets there continue to protect civilians in the volatile southeastern area of Jugu territory in Ituri province. This is the same area where, as we mentioned, peacekeepers evacuated nearly 200 people, and where they also provided escorts for students to Bunia so they could take their exams. On Monday, following reports of Congolese armed forces that members of two armed groups, the Codeco and the CRP, were gathering in two nearby villages. The mission proactively deployed patrols. The peacekeepers successfully evacuated 24 civilians, provided medical assistance, and safely transferred them to a safe location. Our Blue Helmets continue to conduct day and night patrols in the area of Ituri and elsewhere to deter clashes between armed groups, prevent violence, and save civilian lives, and restore confidence among local communities. From Chad, OCHA colleagues tell us that $3 million from the Central Emergency Response Fund has been allocated to support communities in the country to get ahead of the humanitarian consequences of the drought. The prearranged funding will back the government's anticipatory action plan for drought. The funding is also part of OCHA's anticipatory action. It will help protect vulnerable communities in various provinces and with the expected shortages of rain in July, August, and September. Fresh funds will allow UN Food and Agriculture Organization, WFP, UNICEF, working with Chadian authorities to provide early warnings, cash transfers, repairs to wells, and climate-resilient seeds to about 70,000 people. This timely support aims to safeguard lives, livelihoods, and harvest before the drought worsens. And lastly, I want to flag that the Multi-Stakeholder Forum on Science and Technology and Innovation for Sustainable Development Goals began its 11th session right here. This year, the STI Forum, as it is often referred to, will focus on water and energy sectors, exploring their interlinkages with infrastructure, sustainable cities, and communities aligned, of course, with the SDGs. It will feature 10 youth-led innovations showcasing practical, locally grounded solutions with strong potential for adaptation and scale. Over 60 side events will be organized here at off-site locations or virtually. You can watch the forum on UN Web TV, and in the meantime, you can ask me questions. Edie.
Thank you, Steph. According to President Trump, the U.S. and Iran appear to move closer to ending the war. Is the UN prepared to try to move ships with fertilizer and food through the Strait of Hormuz immediately after it is opened?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think, like all of us, will need to get some clarity on what the situation will be in the Strait. There are a couple of things going on. The initiative led by UNOPS, by Jorge Romero de Silva, is focused on getting fertilizer and humanitarian aid through the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, if full freedom of navigation is restored and navigational rights are restored, that sort of mechanism will not be needed. We're watching the news like we are. Secretary General is also being briefed. I think, as he said numerous times, he wants to see diplomacy prevail over destruction. We're very grateful to the efforts of Pakistan and other countries in supporting the de-escalation between U.S. And Iran.
Just a quick follow-up on the initiative. Has it been given any kind of a green light?
Let me just put it this way. Georges is continuing its consultations. There's a lot of interest, but until all the ducks are in a row, it can't get underway. Once everything is aligned, and if everything is aligned, then I think UNOPS needs about 7 days to deploy the necessary people to get everything done. Mr. Schwinghammer.
Thank you. Follow-up to Edie. The White House insists that the Iran war is over. What's your assessment? Is the Iran war over?
Look, we need to, I think there's still a lot of clarity that needs to happen. Obviously, there are a lot of diplomatic activity ongoing. We saw the kinetic activity happen earlier this week. We didn't see anything today, which is a good sign. And our focus really is to ensure something that is sustainable, and that includes the freedom of navigation in the strait and the as explained, as reaffirmed, in Resolution 2817. Volodymyr.
Thank you, Stéphane. We are seeing reports that Russia requested a one-day ceasefire to protect its military parade in Moscow on May 9th. President Zelensky announced a ceasefire that was to take effect starting earlier from last night. However, Russia has violated it almost 2,000 times, including by striking a kindergarten in Sumy last night. Do you have any comment on this development?
I mean, yesterday, as you saw, we welcome these announcement of these two ceasefires. Obviously, it's disappointing that the conflict is still ongoing, and as you mentioned, infrastructure is still being hit, people are still being killed. There's still time, and we encourage the parties to respect the ceasefire commitments they're making. Okay, I don't see anybody online because I think the Zoom has collapsed. Which is fine. So we'll go back to you, Benno.
Can I ask a light question about the World Cup?
A light question about the World Cup. I don't think there can be, I mean, the World Cup is not a light issue.
It's not this year.
It is not. A lot of it is at stake, including bragging rights. So you could ask a question.
Is the Secretary General planning to go to a game, and what does he think about the prices?
I don't know if the Secretary General is planning to go to a game. I think we would all like to see games that are more accessible to more people. Islam.
Thank you, Stéphane.
You want to ask a cricket question since Iftikhar's not around? No? Okay,
no cricket question. Question on Gaza.
Yep.
Any new information or new development about that so-called orange line?
No, I mean, the facts on the ground are the facts on the ground. I mean, as I said, people in Gaza, the 2.1 million people in Gaza who, even before, were living in a rather dense area, can now only live in about half of the previous areas, which is unacceptable.
And about the humanitarian aid, every day almost you tell that not enough, there's always restriction, and it has been more than 6 months, as you said. Do you think anybody hear you other than us, especially those who are responsible with the ceasefire?
We hope that others besides you hear us. These are issues we raise with the Israeli authorities on a daily basis. We've also raised them with American counterparts. The bottom line, there hasn't been much positive movement on that. We don't control the system. We know we're on the ground. Our colleagues see with their own eyes exactly what the situation is. They know what's needed, and we're just not getting it. Yvonne Murray, RTE.
Thanks, Steph. I just wonder, are you in danger of underplaying the impact of the ongoing closure of the Strait of Hormuz on the global economy?
I mean, I don't think the Secretary General we spoke to last week underplayed anything. I mean, he was laying out some pretty grim scenarios, even if things reopen quickly. So I don't interpret everything that I've said as being I mean, everything, all the facts that we're putting out on our UNCTAD colleagues update there. I mean, the website's being updated in real time. The Secretary General, I think, is sometimes being criticized for being alarmist about many things, and I think he's being very, very realistic about the real damage that is already being caused to the global economy because of the continued closure. And we see it every day, right? We see it every day here, and all our colleagues around the world see it, and the people who are most vulnerable are suffering the most. Let's go.
Sorry, quick
No, don't be
question,
sorry.
Stéphane. Would you have any readout or any information sent out regarding Secretary General's personal envoy visit in the region?
No, I know he was supposed to meet with Foreign Minister Fidan today. I have not been able to get an update yet. Okay. On that note, enjoy the rest of the day. Hasta mañana.